Story number 6. Lukas and the Nails. Chapter 1. Lukas' temper, the boy who often quarreled with friends. Lukas was a 12-year-old boy living in a small town along the Rhine River in Germany. The town, peaceful with red-roofed houses and cobblestone streets, seemed to nurture calmness. Yet within Lukas burned a constant fire. He was known in the neighborhood for his short temper, and almost every day, he got into arguments, sometimes even fights, with his friends. Every afternoon after school, when the sunlight began to tint the rooftops gold, Lukas would run to the playground behind the school, where kids his age gathered. Today was no exception. A group of friends was playing ball, and in a moment of impatience, Lukas became furious when the ball struck his foot. "Not again. Why is it always me?" he shouted, eyes blazing. A classmate, Jonas, turned around, his face flushed. "You're overreacting, Lukas. It's just a ball." But Lukas didn't listen. He shoved Jonas out of the circle, and a quick scuffle broke out. Yells, the sound of shoes hitting the ground, and the distant calls of adults shouting, "Stop it immediately," filled the air. Herr Fischer, Lukas' father, stepped out of the house, brow furrowed, a mix of anger and worry in his eyes. "Lukas, come home right now," he shouted. The boy hesitated, still smoldering inside. On the way home, his fists clenched, muttering complaints and grievances, blaming both himself and others. Herr Fischer understood that his son's anger couldn't always be explained with words. He recalled his own childhood, the outbursts, the fights, and the lingering regrets over the years. When Lukas sat on the steps at home, still frustrated, his father called him over, speaking in a calm but firm tone. "Lukas, every time you feel anger rising, you need to recognize it and handle it differently. If you let anger control you, you will hurt others and yourself as well." Lukas frowned, still simmering with rage. "But father, I can't. They always make me angry." Herr Fischer gently placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "That's exactly why you need a way to learn to control it. You'll see, peace doesn't come from never being angry, but from knowing how to channel your anger correctly, without harming yourself or others." Lukas looked at his father, a mix of curiosity and apprehension in his eyes. Herr Fischer went inside and returned with a small leather pouch filled with long iron nails. He set it before Lukas, voice steady. "Every time you feel anger rising, instead of shouting or fighting, you will take a nail from this pouch and hammer it into the fence in the backyard. This will help you see your anger concretely and teach you to control it." Lukas looked skeptical, a hint of challenge in his gaze. "Just hammer nails? That's strange. Try it," his father replied, eyes distant, as if reminding him that the most valuable lessons often come in simple yet profound ways. That evening, Lukas sat by the fence in the garden, holding the first nail. He felt his heartbeat quicken as the anger from earlier rose within him. He grasped the hammer, aimed at the wooden post, and struck the first nail. The clang echoed sharply, startling him. A strange sensation crept in, both a sense of release and the realization that uncontrolled anger could harm not only others but himself. As he hammered the second and third nails, Lukas began to understand that every burst of anger, every sulk, every frustration could be observed, transformed, and learned from. This was not punishment, but an opportunity to understand himself, his limits, and how to maintain inner peace. In the following days, Lukas still felt anger. But instead of lashing out, he went to the fence, chose a nail, and hammered it in. Each nail served as a reminder of moments of unrest, and at the same time, a testament to Lukas learning to keep calm, observing his anger without letting it control him. In his heart, a new seed was beginning to grow, the understanding that peace does not mean the absence of anger, but knowing how to navigate it, ensuring it harms neither oneself nor others. Each afternoon, as sunlight gilded the garden, the fence was lined with nails, traces of anger, yet also proof that Lukas was learning the power of restraint, mindfulness, and inner peace. This moment marked the close of one day, but Lukas' story was far from over. Chapter 2. The Father's Bag of Nails. Every time Lukas was angry, he must hammer a nail into the fence. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the large oak trees, casting dappled light onto the small garden in front of the house. Lukas held his father's small leather pouch filled with long, shiny nails that glimmered in the morning sun. This time, he no longer felt the skepticism of yesterday, only a mix of curiosity and nervous anticipation. He remembered the anger from the day before, the first strike of the hammer, and the strange sensation of observing his own emotions. Hiroshi stood nearby, speaking gently but firmly. Lukas, remember, each nail represents a moment your anger has taken control. Watch your feelings carefully before placing a nail in the fence, and act mindfully. Lukas nodded, trying to stay calm. As he stepped into the yard, a group of friends began arguing over a stray ball. The anger inside him surged, but instead of lashing out, he took a deep breath, glanced at the pouch, and walked to the fence. Gripping the first nail, he aimed at a post and hammered it in. The clink echoed, but this time, it wasn't random fury. It was a clear awareness of his own emotions. The next day, another surge of anger came when a friend accidentally took his ball. Lukas picked up the second nail, placed it in the post, and hammered it in. He began to realize that each nail was not just a mark of anger, but also a lesson in emotional control and self-awareness. Every strike offered a chance to face himself, to learn how to release anger before it caused harm. One afternoon, as he hammered the fifth nail, Lukas noticed something remarkable. His anger no longer consumed him. It still appeared, but he was no longer swept away by it. Each nail seemed like a mirror, reflecting his emotions, allowing him to observe without reacting impulsively. He understood that anger is not meant to be suppressed or denied, but to be recognized, accepted, and wisely transformed. Day by day, the fence slowly filled with nails, each telling the story of a moment when anger arose. Lukas began keeping a journal, noting when he got angry, the cause, and how he felt after. Hammering a nail. Through this practice, he saw the connection between emotion, action, and consequence, realizing that unchecked anger could hurt others as well as himself. One evening, as the sun set and bathed the yard in golden light, Lukas looked at the nail-filled fence and smiled. He realized that his anger had begun to lessen. Each nail hammered had helped him calm down. Observe and let go. Hiroshi approached, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. You are learning to manage your anger and maintain peace. The bag of nails is just a tool. What matters most is your awareness of your own mind. From that day on, Lukas practiced daily. He no longer reacted impulsively to minor conflicts, but learned to pause, breathe, and use the bag of nails to practice mindfulness and emotional control. Each surge of anger became an opportunity for training, and Lukas gradually realized that inner peace does not mean the absence of anger, but the ability to observe, recognize, and transform it mindfully. That evening, he stood before the fence, nails gleaming in the fading sunlight, and felt a quiet calm fill his heart. He understood that anger could be managed, and that peace begins with awareness and mastery of one's own mind. Lukas' journey was far from over, but today, he had taken an important step toward inner peace. Chapter 3. The lasting marks. Even when the nails are removed, the impressions remain. A week had passed since Lukas began his lesson with the bag of nails. The wooden fence in the yard was now filled with iron spikes, each marking a moment of anger he had experienced. Every breath reminded him of the feeling of rage, the hammer striking the nail, and the strange sense of relief after the final strike. He realized that the nails were not just physical symbols of his anger, but also a map of the soul, guiding him to observe himself day by day. One afternoon, with sunlight casting a golden hue over the yard, Lukas picked up the hammer and slowly began removing the nails from the fence. The first nail came out, and he stared at the wooden post, expecting all traces of his anger to vanish. But no, the impressions remained, deeply etched in the wood, fragments of his past fury still visible. He removed the second nail, the third, and realized that even when the object was gone, the mark persisted. Lukas sat beside the fence, placing his hand on the indents, and reflected. His father had once said, "You'll see, each outburst of anger leaves its mark. The important thing is not to erase it, but to learn to live with it calmly." Looking at the marks, he understood that every surge of anger, whether controlled or released, leaves a trace in the mind. The impressions on the wood were proof that emotions, especially anger, can be transformed, but the memory and lessons from them remain, reminding him of the importance of maintaining inner peace. In the days that followed, Lukas continued his practice. When anger arose, instead of reacting, he reminded himself, observe, don't act. He realized that controlling anger was not merely about hammering or removing nails, but about fully recognizing each moment, remembering the lesson, and accepting the presence of emotions without being dominated by them. One afternoon, as the cool breeze brushed the yard, a little friend approached, his face flushed with anger. "Lukas, he took my ball." Lukas took a deep breath, gripping the bag of nails, but did not use it immediately. Instead, he sat quietly for a moment, observing his friend. After a few minutes, he spoke gently. "I know how it feels to be angry, but try imagining hammering a nail into the fence, looking at it, and then letting it go. You'll feel lighter." His friend listened, wide-eyed, and together they looked at the fence full of impressions. Lukas realized that the marks on the wood were no longer negative symbols, but lessons, reminding each person of the power of awareness and mindfulness. Each indent, each nail, served as a reminder that peace is not the absence of anger, but the ability to face, learn from, and live in harmony with one's emotions. As dusk fell, the sunlight illuminating the marks on the fence, Lukas stood silently, sensing his steady breath and the gentle breeze through his hair. The marks remained, but they no longer felt heavy. They had become living testimonies of the lessons he had learned, showing that inner peace is not about the absence of anger, but the capacity to remain calm even when facing the strongest emotions. Lukas took a long breath, smiled, and stepped back toward the house. The fence still bore its marks, but within him, a fresh sense of serenity spread. No words were needed. It was clear. True peace begins from within, through recognizing, accepting, and living with one's own emotions. Lesson in peace. Controlling anger is the way to preserve peace for yourself and others. In the quiet moments after observing the impressions on the fence, Lukas began to understand that anger is not merely a fleeting emotion, but a powerful energy that can lead to suffering if left unchecked. In Buddhist teachings, the mind without control is like a boat in a storm. Even if you know the direction, it can easily be swept away. Anger, when allowed to grow freely, harms both oneself and those around. Lukas remembered his father's words. Each nail is not just a mark of anger, but an opportunity to practice restraint and observe yourself. From a Buddhist perspective, every surge of anger is a challenge to cultivate mindfulness. When he paused, took a deep breath, and observed the rising emotion, he was practicing mindful meditation, learning to recognize anger before acting. Mindfulness helps separate emotion from reaction, preventing impulsive responses and thereby protecting both oneself and others from harm. Each nail Lukas hammered into the fence was a metaphor for the moments anger arises in daily life. If unrecognized and uncontrolled, it can scratch relationships, leaving lasting wounds in both the mind and interactions with others. By becoming aware, he understood that peace is not the absence of anger, but the ability to manage and transform the energy of anger into calmness and compassion. Buddhism emphasizes the law of karma, cause and effect, in every action. When anger arises, reacting impulsively, yelling, hitting, arguing, plants negative seeds, affecting others and creating unwholesome karma in one's own mind. Conversely, pausing, observing, and letting go sows seeds of peace and compassion, cultivating long-term happiness for oneself and those around. Lukas also realized that controlling anger helps maintain healthy relationships with friends and family. By not reacting impulsively, he avoided hurtful words and actions, creating space for understanding and harmony. This reflects the Buddha's teaching. Without hatred, without violence, a calm mind is true happiness. One afternoon, when a small friend accidentally spilled water from a cup, anger flared in Lukas, but this time, he paused, hand on the bag of nails as a gentle reminder. Instead of scolding, he said softly, "It's okay. Let's clean it up together." In that moment, Lukas felt a profound calm filling his heart, realizing that controlling anger is not suppression but a conscious, peaceful choice, protecting his own mind and nurturing peace for others. Buddhism also teaches compassion and forgiveness. When anger arises, looking deeply into its nature reveals that it often stems from misunderstanding, ignorance, or the suffering of oneself or others. By learning to manage his anger, Lukas was also practicing understanding and forgiveness, promoting inner peace and radiating positive energy to those around him. In the following days, Lukas continued to observe each surge of anger, when it arose, what triggered it, and how he responded. Noting, recognizing, and transforming these emotions became a habit of mindfulness, helping him remain unshaken by strong feelings and live in inner peace while cultivating compassion for others. Looking at the fence full of lasting marks, Lukas realized that inner peace is not the absence of anger, but the ability to face, recognize, and master one's emotions, thereby protecting both oneself and others. Each controlled moment of anger was a step forward in the path of mental cultivation, a real-life practice of Buddhism in daily life. As the afternoon sun illuminated the indents on the fence and a gentle breeze swept through his hair, Lukas took a deep breath and smiled. He understood that the greatest lesson in peace is the ability to recognize, control, and transform anger, for only by mastering one's emotions can one truly preserve peace for oneself and others. In that serene moment, he deeply felt the power of mindfulness, forgiveness, and compassion, the foundational stones of inner peace in Buddhist teaching. Story number 7. Zen Master Ananda and the Snake Inn. The Nepal Forest. Chapter 1. The fear of the villagers. A venomous snake terrifies everyone. Early in the morning, in the small village of Bhaktapur, nestled among the rolling hills and dense pine forests of Nepal, the usually peaceful atmosphere suddenly became tense in an unusual way. The old wooden doors of the houses were tightly shut. The birds seemed to stop singing, as if holding their breath, and the scent of morning dew mixed with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves created a thick sense of unease. Rumors of a giant venomous snake slithering through the southern forests spread like wildfire. It hadn't appeared just once. It seemed to linger near the village, lurking close to the wells, vegetable gardens, and narrow paths. Villagers whispered to each other in trembling voices. "Did you hear? Yesterday it devoured the entire flock of Mr. Sharma's chickens." Not just the chickens. Mrs. Gita even saw it lying on her doorstep, lifting its head to watch her. Children were not allowed outside, and everyone moved cautiously, clutching sticks, stones, or old wooden staffs for protection. Fear was tangible in every gesture, every glance. Some even recounted old tales from their grandparents, warning that the forests of Nepal were home to snakes with a divine aura, and anyone bitten by them would hardly survive. At the village's small tea house, where a few men usually gathered each morning, the chatter about the snake never ceased. Mr. Daniel, an English teacher who had lived in the village for a few years, sipped his tea and said, "I've seen many snakes in Nepal, but this one, it's unusual. It's huge, very silent, and just seeing it is terrifying." An elderly woman, Mrs. Sita, interjected, her voice shaking. "Yes, that snake is a bad omen. It carries death. We shouldn't go near that forest anymore." The story grew wilder with each retelling. People said the snake not only hunted for prey, but also seemed to watch the villagers, staring at them with cold eyes as if it could sense all their fear. Missing livestock, strange tracks on the ground, and soft hissing sounds at night left villagers sleepless. Flickering oil lamps in the wind seemed like silent warnings. Children cried quietly, clinging to their mothers, telling each other not to go to the gardens. The men gathered in groups, carrying long sticks, small knives, even old flashlights, planning patrols along every path and through every thicket. "We have to do something. If it enters the village, who will protect us?" A young farmer named Ram shouted, panic in his voice. "There's nothing we can do except stay vigilant. Stay home, keep the doors closed, and wait for someone capable to handle it." Another replied, though fear was evident in his tone. Not only the villagers, but even rare visitors to Bhaktapur felt a shiver when they heard the story. An American couple strolling along the cobblestone streets froze when villagers whispered, "Be careful, there's a venomous snake in that forest. It's very dangerous." They exchanged worried glances, sensing the fear that seemed to seep into every breath. The atmosphere in Bhaktapur was no longer just a warning about a dangerous creature. It was a deep fear embedded in every villager's heart, a mixture of shock and helplessness. Days passed, and villagers felt as if they were trapped within their own homes. No one dared to venture out until the sun was high. Even familiar paths leading to the forest or the wells suddenly felt alien and dangerous. Every rustle of leaves, every gust of wind made their hearts tighten. One afternoon, as the sun peeked over the mountains, a group of villagers armed with sticks and flashlights decided to approach the area where the snake was usually seen. They saw nothing but enormous footprints and disturbed leaves. Then, from the shadows, a faint hiss echoed, chilling them to the bone. They immediately ran back to the village, shouting to each other, voices trembling. "It's there! It's following us!" The scene spread quickly throughout the village, intensifying the fear. Even the bravest men began avoiding areas near the forest. Every step, every sound could signal the snake's presence. The fear became an invisible monster that crept into every house, every conversation. Amid the peak of this fear, news began circulating. A monk named Ananda, known for living a quiet life in the forest, was coming to the village. People said he possessed a special ability, such stillness that even dangerous creatures would not dare to harm him. Villagers exchanged looks filled with a mixture of hope and anxiety, wondering, could a single human truly face such a giant snake unharmed? And just as the fear reached its peak, all eyes turned toward the path leading into the forest, waiting for the answer to a meeting that could change everything. Chapter 2. The Encounter with Ananda, sitting in meditation beside the snake, without harm. Early the next morning, when a thin layer of mist still covered the trees of Bhaktapur forest, the villagers gathered along the trail leading deep into the woods, their eyes filled with curiosity and worry. News of the arrival of the monk Ananda had spread throughout the village. People said he lived in the forest, meditated all day, and possessed a special ability that could calm even dangerous creatures. But facing the giant snake that had caused so much fear, could the rumors be true? Ananda appeared, walking slowly, each step in harmony with the rhythm of the forest. His ochre robes fluttered lightly in the morning breeze, his black and gray hair dusted with dew, blending with the pale light of dawn. He carried nothing but a small rolled-up mat. The villagers stood back, watching silently, hearts pounding with anticipation and wonder. "Monk Ananda, can you do anything?" a man asked, his voice trembling. Ananda smiled gently, his gaze fixed toward the forest where the snake usually appeared. He placed the mat on the ground, sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and breathed evenly. No other movement, no word, only absolute stillness, as if the mountains and trees themselves were breathing with him. The villagers whispered to one another, eyes wide. Could an ordinary human really remain calm in the presence of such danger? After a long moment, a faint hiss came from the shadows. Everyone held their breath. The giant snake emerged, slithering over the dry leaves, its head rising, eyes gleaming as if piercing the minds of those watching from afar. It moved closer, seemingly drawn to Ananda's stillness. It's coming toward him. A young boy gasped, eyes wide. Ananda remained seated, unmoving, even as the snake coiled around a nearby tree, raising its head to eye level with him. He stayed silent, breathing deeply, eyes softly closed, radiating compassion. The villagers watched, fear still present, yet noticing something extraordinary. The snake did not attack. It paused, listening, seemingly measuring the calm energy emanating from Ananda. Each breath of the monk spread gentle waves, slowly easing the tension in the surrounding forest. An elderly woman whispered, Could Ananda be using some kind of magic? Ananda opened his eyes and looked at the snake, smiling. His voice was soft, audible only to those nearby. There is nothing to fear. Every being moves toward peace when met with compassion. His words flowed like a gentle wind. The villagers felt warmth spreading through them, yet they did not fully relax. The snake still stood there, watching, body coiled, each slight movement enough to make hearts pound. The encounter continued, unresolved. The villagers watched, breath held, both fearful and amazed, trying to memorize every detail. The way Ananda breathed, the way he sat in meditation, the aura of compassion radiating from him. Everything seemed to slow down, the space around them becoming quietly miraculous. In that moment, the villagers began to realize this was not merely a confrontation between man and snake. It was a confrontation with fear itself, a test of inner calm, the power of compassion, and how one human could harmonize with the world without violence. Chapter 3. The Transformation. The snake gradually calms, no longer attacks. After the first tense moment of the encounter, the villagers of Bhaktapur stood silently, their eyes fixed on monk Ananda sitting cross-legged on the forest path, facing the giant snake. The stillness radiating from him seemed to spread throughout the forest. The tension that had filled the village days before began to ease, giving way to a subtle, almost indescribable energy that brought a deep sense of calm to every heart. The snake, once fierce and terrifying to everyone, now moved slowly among the fallen leaves, advancing cautiously. Its bright eyes remained focused on Ananda, but there were no threatening gestures. Every movement of its body seemed more deliberate, less abrupt. The hissing sounds had stopped. The villagers held their breath, afraid to disturb the extraordinary moment unfolding before them. "Look, it's not attacking anymore," whispered a boy, trembling yet awestruck. "Perhaps it's sensing something from Monk Ananda," an older man replied, his voice a mix of fear and amazement. Ananda remained seated, eyes closed, hands resting gently on his knees, breathing evenly. He neither commanded nor gestured. He simply maintained absolute stillness. Yet the energy of compassion and serenity radiating from him seemed to affect the snake naturally. Gradually, the snake's tense movements softened, its faint hissing became less frequent, until it fell silent. Elderly Mrs. Sita, eyes glistening with emotion, whispered, We are witnessing something extraordinary. It's no longer a threat." The villagers, some of whom had been panicked moments before, now stood quietly, observing. They realized that the snake's aggression was not innate. It responded to the energy around it. When met with violence, it became hostile. When met with peace and compassion, it calmed. This was not magic, but a reflection of the natural law of mind and world. Ananda opened his eyes and looked at the villagers, his calm, deep voice carrying. "Fear exists only when we respond with fear. When the heart is peaceful and compassion spreads, even the most dangerous beings can become gentle. True power does not come from violence, but from the stillness within." Everyone exhaled, feeling the tension leave their bodies. They stepped closer, but respectfully, to witness the ongoing transformation. The once fierce snake was now merely a creature learning to harmonize with the serene energy surrounding it. The children, who had once trembled with fear, stepped forward, curious but no longer afraid. One boy asked Ananda, "Will it hurt us anymore?" Ananda smiled warmly and replied, "It responds only to the energy we give. When we are peaceful and compassionate, it has no reason to be aggressive. Remember, true strength comes from the mind, not from force." The Bhaktapur forest seemed enveloped in a rare calm. The fear that had once dominated had dissolved, replaced by mindful observation, gratitude, and awe at the power of compassion. The snake, gradually retreating into the deeper forest, was no longer a threat, but a living testament to transformation. Aggression can soften, fear can dissipate, all through compassion and inner peace. The villagers of Bhaktapur began to grasp a simple yet profound truth. Fear only exists when the mind reacts. When the heart is still, when compassion flows, the world around reflects that peace. They looked at each other with newfound trust, and from that moment, every tale of the giant snake would no longer be a story of terror, but a lesson on living in harmony and maintaining inner peace amid life's challenges. And when Ananda departed, his steps slow and measured in the golden light of sunset, the energy of calm he left behind lingered in every home, every glance, every heart. The giant snake had become a living symbol of the power of compassion and serenity. The villagers of Bhaktapur understood that peace is not the absence of danger, but the ability to maintain a still mind amidst the storm. a lesson that would be passed down from generation to generation, subtle yet enduring in the rhythm of their lives. The lesson of peace. Compassion has the power to dissolve hatred and fear. After the extraordinary and deeply moving encounter with the giant snake, not only the villagers of Bhaktapur, but anyone who witnessed it could feel a subtle message. Peace does not come from favorable circumstances or the absence of danger, but is an inner state cultivated from a heart of compassion. From a Buddhist perspective, this story is not merely an extraordinary event. It is a profound lesson on transforming fear, hatred, and suffering into peace through stillness and compassion. In life, people often respond to danger or threats with fear, frustration, or even hatred. This instinctive reaction serves survival, yet it is also the reason the mind rarely finds true calm. The villagers of Bhaktapur were no different. They lived in constant fear, moving cautiously through the village, their actions and words reflecting anxiety. Their minds were disturbed, and the world around them appeared more threatening than it actually was. In Buddhism, this state is called anger and fear, two of the greatest afflictions that prevent humans from attaining peace. The Buddha taught that all suffering originates in the mind, from the way we respond to the world. When facing fear, if we respond with hatred or aggression, negative energy spreads, not only affecting ourselves but also impacting others and the environment around us. In the story of Ananda and the snake, this principle is clearly illustrated. The snake became aggressive because it was reacting to the villagers' fear and anxiety. Their apprehension inadvertently amplified the danger the snake represented. In contrast, Ananda, with a calm and compassionate mind, generated no fear but radiated serenity. As a result, the snake gradually transformed, fear dissipated, and no threat remained. Buddhism calls this the law of the mind and karma. A compassionate mind generates harmony, an angry mind generates conflict. When one observes the world with peace, they not only liberate themselves from afflictions, but also positively influence their surroundings. Peace is contagious, and compassion is its most powerful catalyst. Another crucial lesson is stillness and self-awareness. Ananda did not command or force the snake into calmness. He simply sat in meditation, and through his full presence, radiated peace. Buddhism calls this mindfulness, the ability to observe phenomena without reacting impulsively, without being driven by greed, anger, or delusion. Through mindfulness and compassion, one can recognize fear, understand it, and not let it dominate behavior. The villagers of Bhaktapur became living proof. From extreme fear, they learned to observe, not react with violence or anxiety, but with patience and empathy. The snake, once a symbol of danger, became gentle. Ananda's compassion not only protected him, but also protected the entire community, teaching them that peace is not something sought outside, but something nurtured within. Buddhism further teaches that compassion is not limited to humans, but extends to all sentient beings. Every creature has the right to live, and when we radiate compassion, we do not create fear or hatred. Instead, we harmonize the small world around us. The snake in this story was not an enemy. It reflected the energy of the villagers. When compassion spread, aggression softened, fear turned to peace, and the community learned to live in harmony with all beings and the world around them. Another profound lesson is the power of presence. Ananda did not act to rescue or impose control. Simply by being fully present, he allowed fear and aggression to dissolve. Buddhism calls this guiding through compassionate presence, a spiritual force that requires no physical action, yet is strong enough to resolve conflict and fear. This power transcends physical strength, surpasses all fear, and opens the path to enduring peace. Ultimately, the lesson of peace in this story reminds everyone: when we cultivate compassion, peace arises. When we cultivate anger, fear multiplies. Life is a series of challenges: anger, hatred, loss, or the snakes that appear in many forms. Only when the heart is serene and compassion strong can we transform these dangers into opportunities for growth, learning to live harmoniously, and realizing the truth of impermanence, karma, and the essence of inner peace. Looking back at Bhaktapur after the event, the villagers no longer lived in fear, but in mindful observation, gratitude, and respect for all life. Compassion had dissolved fear, and peace had seeped into every breath. From a Buddhist perspective, this is living proof. Peace and compassion do not merely save one individual. They can heal entire communities, teaching the world lessons about harmony with all beings and with oneself. In modern life, when people face stress, hatred, or conflict, the story of Ananda and the snake remains profoundly relevant. It reminds us that all conflicts and fears can be transformed through mindful presence and compassion. When each person radiates love and peace, the world around reflects it. And true strength is not in violence, but in compassion, the power capable of dissolving hatred and fear, guiding every soul toward inner peace. The lesson of peace does not end in Bhaktapur or with the giant snake. It is a timeless reminder from Buddhism. Let compassion guide your path. Let peace take root in your heart and allow all fear and hatred to dissolve in the light of a still and mindful mind. The path to inner peace, lessons, and practical applications. In life, people constantly face challenges, fear, stress, conflict, or unavoidable loss. This section focuses on recognizing the source of true peace, understanding how to cultivate a calm mind, and applying compassion to dissolve hatred, fear, and inner tension. Instead of letting circumstances dictate our state of mind, we learn to master our inner world, turning every situation into an opportunity to practice serenity and harmony in daily life. Peace does not come from material things, but from the mind. In modern life, people often assume that happiness and peace come from material possessions, achievements, or external circumstances. We chase money, status, power, or perfect relationships, believing that once we have them, our mind will be at ease. True peace does not arise from external conditions, but is an inner state cultivated through a pure, calm, and compassionate mind. Buddhism teaches that all external phenomena are impermanent. Wealth, status, social position, all arise, exist, and eventually pass away. If we rely on these things for peace, our mind will always fluctuate according to circumstances. When we lose them, we suffer. When we gain them, we rejoice, but that joy is fleeting. Therefore, true peace cannot depend on the outside. It must be nurtured within. The mind is the source of all inner states. When the mind is clouded by afflictions such as anger, fear, jealousy, or greed, even in ideal circumstances, one cannot experience true peace. Conversely, when the mind is nourished with mindfulness and compassion, even amidst challenges or difficulties, one remains serene. This is why the Buddha emphasized, the mind is master. External things are merely reflections. A fundamental principle in Buddhism is impermanence and nikka. All phenomena, including wealth, status, and health, are constantly changing. By deeply understanding impermanence, people reduce attachment to external things. Peace arises when one's mind is no longer dependent on what can disappear, when the mind is strong enough to remain steady amidst life's ever-changing currents. Another essential factor is compassion, metta, and loving-kindness. When the mind cultivates love without anger or hatred, a positive energy flows, soothing both inner tension and external conflict. Peace is not imposed by circumstances, but emerges naturally when the mind is free from afflictions. Compassion not only protects oneself from anger, but also creates harmony in the surrounding world, turning every situation into an opportunity to practice calm and serenity. Buddhism also emphasizes mindfulness as a tool to recognize and transform the mind. By being fully present in each moment, observing thoughts, emotions, and actions without reacting impulsively, peace arises naturally. Mindfulness helps individuals separate themselves from unconscious reactions, preventing the mind from being disturbed by events or external conditions. Thus, peace does not come as a gift from the environment, material possessions, or other people, but as the result of a serene mind, mindfulness, and compassion. When the mind is steady, even amid challenges, one can maintain tranquility. This is why Buddhist practice always emphasizes inner cultivation, meditation, mindfulness, and nurturing compassion as the direct path to true peace. On a broader level, recognizing that peace comes from within helps people reduce dependence on external circumstances, avoiding disappointment, anger, or anxiety in the face of life's changes. Everyone, regardless of background or situation, has the ability to create their own inner peace simply by purifying the mind, observing afflictions, and cultivating compassion. Peace is not a reward from the external world. It is an inner state nurtured by the mind. By understanding and practicing this, every challenge in life becomes an opportunity to strengthen the mind, every change a lesson on impermanence, karma, and the latent power within. Inner peace never fades, even as material conditions and circumstances shift, and it forms the foundation for living in harmony with oneself and the world. Connecting the stories, the journey to inner peace through 7 lives. Looking back at the 7 stories we have explored, a broad picture of the journey toward inner peace gradually emerges. Each story is a distinct piece, reflecting different aspects of the human mind, yet all point toward a common truth. Peace does not arise from material possessions or external circumstances, but from how we cultivate the mind and relate to the world around us. Arjun, the young man from India in the first story, represents imperfection and the ever-present anxiety of human life. In a world full of pressure and expectations, Arjun constantly strives for perfection, only to realize that tension and suffering arise from his own desire to be flawless. From a Buddhist perspective, Arjun's story illustrates that recognizing imperfection and accepting it is the first step toward peace. When we stop forcing the impossible, the mind becomes free, light, and open to true joy. Next is Nan-in, the Japanese Zen master with a philosophy of letting go. Nan-in teaches that clinging to the past, or holding on to what is past, weighs down the mind. He demonstrates the power of releasing control and allowing things to unfold naturally. Life is constantly changing. Circumstances cannot always be controlled. But when we let go and do not cling, a natural sense of peace arises. This message emphasizes that compassion and inner stillness are not only internal attitudes, but also practical ways to navigate the flow of life with grace. Hiroshi, a busy Japanese businessman, embodies mindfulness in modern life. Amid endless meetings, constant emails, and the fast pace of Tokyo, Hiroshi learns to breathe, observe his emotions, and live fully in each moment. Through his story, we see that peace does not mean withdrawing from reality, but being able to stand amidst the rushing currents of life without letting the mind be swept away. Mindfulness allows clear insight into the nature of things, reduces suffering, and builds a foundation of serenity. Ravi, a young artist in Mumbai, explores the treasure within. In a life full of external turbulence, failures, and losses, Ravi realizes that true wealth does not lie in money or success, but in nurturing wisdom, compassion, and creativity. Within, inner peace and freedom are the most precious assets. Through Ravi, we learn that everyone has the ability to cultivate their inner world, creating a stable resource to face any challenge. Hyeon, a student in South Korea, represents understanding impermanence. In a world where everything changes constantly, from people to situations to emotions, clinging to anything leads to suffering. Awareness of impermanence allows Hyeon to release attachments, accept all changes as a natural part of life, and find profound equanimity. This is a lesson in the flexibility of the mind and the ability to live in harmony with the continuous flow of time and phenomena. Lukas, a teacher in Berlin, experiences the power of controlling anger. When faced with conflict and injustice, Lukas realizes that impulsive reactions only multiply suffering for both himself and others. Through meditation and mindfulness, he learns to maintain a calm mind, analyze situations objectively, and transform negative energy into wise action. Lukas's story emphasizes that peace is not only an inner state, but also a life skill that helps maintain harmony in relationships and society. Finally, there is Ananda and the giant snake in Nepal, a vivid example of compassion and the power to dissolve fear. Ananda does not confront fear or use force, through full presence and compassion. He transforms aggression into gentleness. This story illustrates that when the mind is filled with compassion, even seemingly uncontrollable dangers can be transformed. Peace becomes an energy that spreads, influencing not only oneself but all beings and the community around. When we connect these 7 stories, a comprehensive model of the spiritual journey begins to appear, recognizing imperfection, letting go, practicing mindfulness, uncovering inner treasures, understanding impermanence, controlling anger, and spreading compassion. Each step is part of the journey. Each character reflects different facets of human experience, but all converge toward the same goal: inner peace and harmony with the world. This journey is not limited to a single culture or country. Arjun in India, Nan-in and Hiroshi in Japan, Ravi in India, Hyeon in South Korea, Lukas in Germany, and Ananda in Nepal all live in different contexts, facing unique challenges. Yet the principle of inner peace remains unchanged. This demonstrates that Buddhist teachings and the principles of peace are universal, transcending cultural, temporal, and spatial boundaries. These lessons also highlight that peace is not a state achieved once and retained forever. It is a continuous process, observing, learning, practicing, and refining the mind. The 7 stories serve as living examples, showing us opportunities to practice in daily life. From accepting imperfection, letting go of desires, maintaining mindfulness, cultivating inner treasures, recognizing impermanence, controlling emotions, to spreading compassion in every action. By connecting these stories, readers or listeners will recognize a subtle truth. Peace is a journey, not a destination. It does not come from outside, nor depend on material or circumstances. It is built step by step within the mind. With consistent practice, these principles not only reduce suffering, but also open a world where we perceive and interact with people and life through the lens of compassion, calmness, and harmony. Through the 7 characters, we see that peace results from self-awareness, understanding, and practice. Each story is a brick in the foundation of spiritual growth. Together, they form a complete structure, helping anyone visualize the path from fear, anger, and insecurity toward inner peace, freedom, and harmony with the world. This is the enduring message. Anyone, in any circumstance, has the ability to cultivate inner peace through wisdom, compassion, and the stillness of the mind. A short practice, pause, and take a mindful breath. In today's fast-paced life, we rarely take a true moment for ourselves. All the plans, notifications, deadlines, and social pressures seem to constantly pull the mind away from the present. But right now, you can pause. Just a few seconds are enough to begin experiencing inner calm. Sit comfortably on a chair or on the floor, keeping your back straight yet relaxed. Rest your hands lightly on your lap. Close your eyes if it feels comfortable, or keep a soft downward gaze. The goal is not to control your breath, but to observe it, noticing the natural rhythm of your body. Now, take a deep breath in. Feel the air entering through your nose, flowing down into your lungs, expanding your chest and abdomen. Hold the breath for a moment, then exhale slowly, sensing the air leaving your body gently and naturally. As you exhale, allow your mind to follow the breath, releasing any tension or worries accumulated in your body. In this moment, let go of thoughts about the past or concerns about the future. Focus only on the breath, the rhythm of your life, and the stillness spreading through you. If the mind wanders, gently return to your breath without judgment or self-criticism. Mindfulness does not require perfection, just awareness and a return to the present. As you breathe in, imagine inhaling calm, stillness, and compassion. As you breathe out, imagine releasing tension, anxiety, and all that disturbs your mind. Each breath is an opportunity to connect with yourself and recognize that peace is always present. You only need to allow your mind to pause and notice it. Even a short practice can make a difference. You may feel your body lighten, your mind clear, and your heart soften. This is the first step in realizing that peace is not something granted externally. It is a state that can arise from within. After a few mindful breaths, slowly open your eyes and observe the world around you. Everything may appear the same, yet your inner state has shifted. Your heartbeat slows, your body relaxes, and your mind is less rushed. This is living proof that even brief mindfulness can bring a sense of calm. Remember, practice does not need to be long or complicated. One mindful breath, one fully present moment, is enough to remind you of the power of the inner mind. From this moment onward, every action and thought can be guided by awareness and serenity. Taking a mindful breath today, you have already begun planting seeds of peace within. In the moments that follow, walking, drinking tea, or talking with others, try to maintain this attention. You will realize that peace does not need to be sought elsewhere. It is always present, waiting for you to return and recognize it. As this short practice ends, you can smile softly, feeling the lingering stillness and carrying this energy into every subsequent action. This is a small step, yet an essential foundation for nurturing inner peace in everyday life. Let's continue our journey of exploring inner peace through the teachings of Buddhism. Today, if you find this video valuable, please like and share it with your loved ones so they can also experience moments of calm and compassion. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch the next episodes, where we will explore more meditation practices, mindfulness exercises, and stories that help cultivate a serene mind. Every like, share, and subscription is a small but meaningful step, helping you and the community nurture peace in everyday life.